I came up with these 5 phrases about Advent and Christmas. Entering the season, experiencing the story, exploring the spaces, evoking the senses, and enchanting the spirit. The seasonal times of the church year are about experiencing a story. They're not about, reading Paul's letters or, I don't know, laws from Leviticus or Deuteronomy. They're actually about a narrative that is meant to enfold us and envelop us and take us somewhere. So we don't have to understand it all and make sense of it all. We can ask questions of it, but primarily seasons like Advent and Christmas, Lent and Easter, Pentecost are about losing ourselves in this big story, and I like to say losing ourselves so that we might find ourselves. So regardless of whether we're gathered or dispersed, this is about inviting people to enter not just a story but a season. So we know Advent is a season of waiting and hoping and all that stuff, and we know there's a narrative that takes us through that actually started, it started with Mary, the angel visiting Mary. So it didn't start 4 weeks before Easter, it started months before Easter, and of course Easter, Christmas, and of course in the Old Testament there's all this stuff about all this hope of Israel and the Messiah. So the story is lengthy, it's global, it's eternal in the best sense, I guess, but it also evokes a whole lot of stuff. So stories are about space because they're about going somewhere, and stories are about time because it takes us a while to get there. And 2 of the things that we know about most in COVID are space and time. Little space and a heck of a lot of time. So we all come to this with stuff in our heads about what does this story mean and say to us here and now. And so we also want to think about, and we're using the term blended faith formation. How do we not just do worship, but shape people's faith and discipleship, not just when we're gathered, but when we're at home, when we're at work, when we're online, which can be simultaneous, like we're doing now, or synchronous, or it can be asynchronous, which means people go to your website at midnight when you're asleep. And how do we connect with the wider community? So that's part of what we're looking at, not just tonight, but we've started a series of online conversations about that, and the 4th one's in 2 weeks. I'd like to start with a short, it's actually written as a call to worship. I said the other night that Advent seasons are about liminality, and liminality is about thin places where we try and, we can't make God present, but we can try to create the environment in which people might be more open to God than they were. And so that's the liminal thing, the thin places. And so I wrote this thing about a thin place a few weeks ago, and my friend David McGregor put a tune to it, and in a couple of weeks the tune will be available. But tonight I just wanted us to read it together and invite you, I know you're muted and that's fine, to read the last line of each stanza. It's meant to be a slow Taizé type thing that you might sing one verse 6 times, you might sing all the verses. It's actually got some melody, some harmony lines for voice and instrument that can kind of come in. So I was going to play it to you on the piano tonight, but I felt too self-conscious. So think of this as an Advent call to worship. And please say the last line together with me. This is a thin place where heaven touches earth, where promises find birth. Be this our place today. This is a thin place where all creation sings, where hearts with longing ring. Be this our place today. There's a thin place. I changed the words. There is a thin place where someone lost is found and futures are unbound. Be this our place today. There is a thin place where grieving is released and sorrowers find peace. Be this our place today. There is a thin place where we are touched by fire, revived by God's desire. Be this our place today. There is a thin place where people gather round. We stand on holy ground. Be this
Is
our place
today.
today. So I hope to have the music for you in a couple of weeks if you like that. I want to use it. So on Tuesday night, and we're not doing this tonight, we started by talking about what are some of the key texts in Advent, what are some of the themes that come from them, what are some of the symbols that we see in those stories, and how do those stories and symbols evoke our senses. So we're trying to see Advent and Christmas as narrative, as story, as symbol, and as sensory. And symbols are tactile, visual, whatever things that we can hang a story from. So a sign or a symbol doesn't have meaning by itself, but you attach meaning to it, and that gives people something to hold and see, and maybe even taste and hear. That gives meaning. And so and the other night I used a star as an example of a symbol that's carried through a whole bunch of stories that we can attach some meaning to, and how we might make stars and give people stars and stuff. I'll show you a couple of stars tonight. And then wrong arrow. And then we took stars and talked about them. Well, what are some of the stories about stars? What are some of the themes about them in the Bible? What are some songs, both religious and secular? We talked about the star as a symbol, and not just stars that you can make, but stars in the sky and things that you look at stars with and things like that. We talked about senses, and interestingly, we went from seeing to other things, like when you go outside at night, you've got to wait to be able to see the stars. And then we talked at the end about spaces. Where might you put stars? Where might you get a star? Where might you see a star? Okay, so that's the kind of thing we did the other night. Tonight I want to do something quite different. I want to talk to you about an event that I ran at our previous church in Adelaide, Roseville United Church, for 5 years. I coordinated an event called Interactive Christmas and Interactive Easter, and linked to that, we started a thing like Messy Church, but not like Messy Church, called Alive at 5. And I wanted to tell you about this, and then I thought, this is a gathered event we can't gather. And then I started making a list of all the ways that some of the things that we did could be used at home or in the church as prayer installations where just a few people can come in at a time during COVID, or even shared with people down the street in a paper bag or on a letterbox or something like that. And there were all kinds, or on a church website. So there were a whole bunch of ways. And I thought, well, look, I'll tell you about the event, and I'm going to walk you through it. And then I want to pause and kind of unpack it as we think about how might you do some of that stuff in ways that are non-gathered. So I'm going to tell you quickly about the event. I'm going to show you like a 2-minute video that we made after one of them because we'd show the congregation, and then I want to walk you through it. I hope we've got sound.
Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plain, and the mountains in reply, echoing their joyous strains. Gloria, Gloria. See him in a manger laid, whom the choirs of angels praise. Mary, Joseph, lend your aid, while our hearts in love we raise. Gloria, Gloria. Bethlehem and see Christ whose birth the angels sing. Come adore on bended knee Christ the Lord, the newborn King. Gloria, Gloria, Gloria in excelsis Deo.
Okay, so this was an annual event designed to connect the wider community with the Christmas story, particularly focused on families with primary and younger children, including grandparents. I want to say that Rosefield was an ageing church, so it had some children's programs, but this was not a church that was full of youth and children. It was actually declining in that area. We wanted to link it to some other groups and events, our Alive at 5, which is like a monthly messy church thing, a play group which ran weekly, and mainly music. And these are the words that I thought of to describe it. Experiential, so it's hands-on, engages the senses. It's narrative, it's about the story. It's intergenerational for both church people and visitors. It's prayerful, so we want to create spaces for reflection and contemplation and spiritual engagement, and it's interactive and communal. So we ran it on the first or second Sunday in December. So both with Interactive Christmas and Interactive Easter, we basically did the whole story. So we do Easter on Palm Sunday, we do Christmas before Christmas, with the idea that sure, some people would be at church, but some would be off visiting relatives and have visitors and all that kind of stuff. So we wanted people to kind of get the story, whether or not they turned up on Christmas Day. It ended up being a 2-hour time period where you would come when you like, stay as long as you like, and leave when you like. So it wasn't like a program when you have to be there. And it evolved into a guided experience, which I'll show you in a moment, where people could make a bunch of choices. Finished with a sausage sizzle on the tennis courts, and we wanted people to be able to take stuff home. So it wasn't a huge event. We had 80 to 120 people and about 20 to 25 helpers. But half to 2/3 of the people who came would not be regular church attenders, if you like, but they would come back year after year. So, and a high incidence of grandparents bringing grandkids.
Marco told me today that he thinks that I can do my SBAT at school.
Mum, you're not on mute. Thanks.
I was just waiting to see if that was for me. Okay.
No, sorry. Sorry, Anna just came home and she's telling me about her school.
That's all good. All good. Hi, Leonie. So this is one of the programs. So front page. So the back page is the map, and what I'm going to do is walk you through the map. And let me say, I'm not trying to tell you to run an event like this, but I do want to, I suppose, teach you a bit about running events, if you like. And I do think that there's a whole bunch of stuff we can do about experience beyond the Sunday worship service that is well crafted, that most of us know a little bit about, but the more you dip your toe into it, the more you learn. And we learnt so much over 5 years that this kind of kept evolving. So what you'll see at the bottom, and as I said, we'll walk through this, people came in at the foyer. They came into the worship space. You'll see what happens. They went into these rooms out the back, a whole bunch of rooms out the back here. And then they would end up in a final room and then come out for a barbecue. Okay? So they had to come in here. They had to go through here. In here they can go anywhere, anytime, whatever. And they have to go out here. That's the way it kind of worked. And you'll see some little symbols there. So I found a font that had these nice little images, and we kind of use them every year. They changed, but to make a little symbol and then a sign so people would see, You know, oh, I'm in this room or that room or that room. So it relates back to this map that people got when they arrived. Okay, so I'm gonna talk you through it, but I want to stop along the way just to give you some general Advent and Christmas ideas. So we didn't know when people would arrive in the 2-hour period. And so what we did was the foyer was kind of like a waiting room, like going to Disneyland, where you're in the queue and you need something to do. So basically, we would let people into the church every 15 minutes. I'll tell you about that in a moment. And when people came in, there were tables. There's the current president of the United Church there, D.B. Palmer. He was a member of the congregation. And they would make stuff. So if our symbol was an angel, which it was here, they're all making angels. And the husband of the president, who's a doctor, burning his hand with a glue gun because he'd never used one before, but that's a whole other thing. So people would come in drips and drabs, they would do some stuff there, and then they would go into the church. And on the door, is that the next slide? Okay, no, it's not. So they might be doing stuff with stars. Basically, we would give them a take-home bag, and they would start, whatever they made for the time, they would take home. So symbols that might end up on their Christmas tree or something. So one of the things about doing dispersed or non-gathered Advent and Christmas is we can share symbols. People can put them on their table, they can hang them on their Christmas tree, they can put them in the window of their house, they can put them on their letterbox, they can put them in someone else's letterbox. So I want to invite you they can give them as gifts. I want to invite you to think about tactile symbols of Christmas. And you have to choose 50, you just choose one that's going to become the thing that you kind of hang the story on for Advent and Christmas. And then on the door, so glass doors going into the church, there was, this was the angel. There was just a little bit of prose about the first angel. So while people are standing there waiting to come into the church, there's something for them to read and reflect on. And in fact, throughout the building, we've got texts like this that people might just walk past, or they might actually stop and read it. So why were they waiting? Because we wanted people to experience the story before they did any activities. So the core for us was people having 15 or 20 minutes to hear the Christmas story, to hear the Easter story as it was. And that needed to be not too long, needed to be compelling. So it was music, drama, video, interactive stuff. We would invite visiting musicians to come and sing and do 2 or 3 songs. In this particular year, this might have been the last year we did it, mainly music was going really well, so we actually said, okay, let's do a focus on music for under 5s, and everyone else can just join in and sing along. We had wrong way. Our friend Sarah, who's a minister who does biblical storytelling, so on that occasion she was telling part of the story. We used some bits of video, but we used them to introduce a drama. So we didn't want people to just sit and watch a video of the Bible story. So we here's a couple of little bits.
The star is here. Jupiter is here. But look. Not a star. No. Venus, if I'm correct. And I usually am. All 3 will appear to touch.
So that's from the movie The Nativity Story, and it's the 3
Venus is called
Magi looking at the
Jupiter,
stars in the heavens.
shining father.
And this is another clip of them, which was actually we took the audio out and just put some music. That plays for a couple of minutes, and then it cuts into a drama, which is both serious and amusing, about the three wise people who weren't that wise actually coming to visit the baby. So I actually want to use video to set a scene rather than to tell the story. We don't want to watch Hollywood telling the story. We want to actually make it more active. So used a bit of the same video which introduces Mary and Joseph, and that's what it actually does for me. What the video does for me is, for people who've never come to church, it says this is the story from another time and another place. Okay? It's a foreign story. It's an ancient story. This is the time that we're entering into. And then we had a video. Then we had a drama of the Annunciation, but as well as Gabriel turning up to talk to Mary, there's another angel called Gerald who turns up. So there are two angels with different messages. And Gabriel's the real one and Gerald's just making it up. So that middle bit tells a story, and part of the question is, how do you tell a story? So my friend Nikki Watkin in northern part of Auckland, Presbyterian Church there, I think it's Kohimarama. Duncan, I haven't quite got that right, have I?
Kohimarama.
Thank you. She's been doing take-home bags, their church. And so one of the things that I'd be doing in Advent, I'd be delivering story bags, prayer bags, and obviously they've got snack bags to as many people, people part of the church, fringe people for the church, people that church members want to have a bag and give to someone that they know, so that you're giving them some stuff to experience the story. They haven't done this every week during lockdown, and New Zealand's had a shorter lockdown, but they've done it lots and lots and lots. And they've become a takeaway worship machine, that place. It's fantastic. There are a whole lot of ways that for different ages you can invite people to take home, make and reflect on the story. And then you can roll the dice and talk about what's on the dice. So it's actually a way of, it's a teaching tool for remembering and talking about what do we know about the story, what's going on in the story. And if people get it wrong, that's fine, okay? It's actually a way of engaging with, what can you see there? I'm not sure, I think that one looks a bit like a goose with a black tie on it, but anyway, rather than a sheep. Don't worry about that. So the question is, how will you tell the story? How might you tell the story? Well, you can send stuff home to people to tell a story. You can put a link on your church website. If you set up an Advent Christmas page on your church website, you can put some links to some video versions of the story. You could make a video. So a friend in Canberra posted this the other day. She's a teacher. These are corks that someone, well, actually she painted them for school so that kids could use them for storytelling, okay? And they're not all Christmas characters, but it's a really neat little idea. Just don't drink all the champagne yourself, okay? And so the idea I've got is stop motion animation. So stay with me. My wife, she's left the room, and I've told her about this, so it's okay. She is not technological. So a year ago, she got her first smartphone, okay? She is not a technological person. She's an early childhood teacher, and just in lockdown, she got an app on her phone that will let her do stop motion animation. So basically, you set up a scene, and you have characters, and you move them a little bit, and you take 3 photos each time, and in the space of a couple of minutes, you get this little movie. So I've played the part of the pterodactyl in the dinosaur film for the little kids. So she did a thing about dinosaurs coming to the waterhole, and I was standing behind with the bit of fishing line and the pterodactyl playing that, okay? So I'm going to show you the two. So our twins had a birthday, was that yesterday? Had a birthday yesterday, and last Sunday, Yvonne was the director. We made 2 stop motion animation present giving, because they're in South Australia and we can't see them, okay? So this is what, and I was just to help. So this is what Yvonne did, and like I said, she knows nothing about this, but it was a lot of fun. And so you'll see what we gave them. One's the teacher, and so she got some puppets, and the other one, thankfully, is learning to cook, and she wanted something for the kitchen. Here we go. I want to get some champagne corks, paint them, and do a Advent Christmas story using stop motion with little painted corks. We're putting a page of resources on the Presbytery website, and I'm going to put that up there with them, the link to that app. So people then go into the main part of the main foyer. This year we had a local artist do pictures of three kings, which are pretty amazing. Not quite what you expect, but quite remarkable. And this middle bit was all about hands-on stuff. So this year it was about Christmas around the world. So that's a massive world map that I had printed at a Officeworks, I think, no, somewhere else. Cost about $60, and people could get a tree, put it on their country or a country they've been to, write something about Christmas, and we had a whole lot of stuff around the outside, which is about how do people celebrate Christmas. It's a way of actually telling the Christmas story. We had all kinds of art and craft. This is like the craft place, you know, and parents and grandparents and others doing stuff. We would always have something at Easter or Christmas. So I'm a great believer in letting people, not telling people what just to make. So if people want to do what you tell them, fine, but here's some clay. You make whatever it is that this story reminds you of, that this story you've just heard reminds you of, whatever that thing is. And if you want to make a dinosaur, that's okay, but you might make something that reminds you of the story. This year we were making origami cranes, and the Christmas tree in the church was made of paper cranes as a sign of peace and a reminder of the story of Sadako from Hiroshima. In this one, they're making they're decorating candles. As the bottom you'll see, we bought a whole bunch of candles. So they're basically decorating candles to take home and give to somebody. So there's a bit of, you know, giving gifts to people kind of stuff here too. Always had face painting. Again, encouraging the face painter to offer an Advent Christmas symbol, but if they wanted a dinosaur or a spider on their face, that's quite fine. And an old iMac, which I still have, where we would have a dozen different Christmas movies that kids could just, or actually anybody, could just click on and watch. So short little films, you'd click on the movie and then it'd take you back to the main screen. Next to that's the kitchen, where, okay, there's food-related Christmas craft. Look, I have to say, as a Christian educator, I want deep and meaningful activities. This just ended up being about food, okay? Make something tasty, take it home, give it to somebody. But hands-on, participatory, full of sugar, you know, Lord forgive us. A lot of fun. So across from the hall is the creche, and we'd use that in two different ways. The first way was, for several years we used it as a, oh sorry, back to food. For non-gathered church, you can send people recipes. You can send people stuff to make at home. And it might be stuff for kids, or it might be a, I'm putting this out there for Arnica, it might be a lovely Christmas biscuit treat from the Netherlands with a little explanation of a Christmas ritual or something from there that actually adds meaning to the story of Christmas that you can bake at home and then enjoy eating. So give people some stuff to make, to eat, to give to their neighbours. You know, if these biscuits didn't burn, give some to the people in your street, and here's a little thing that you might give them about what that means. So across the hall, for for a few years we did a photo booth. So basically the Sunday school had heaps of dress-ups, and we just put them out. We had a photographer, we had someone to help people dress, and basically a family could come and dress up, we'd take their photo and we would email it to them. This family, I won't name them, the three at the back are triplets, and man, they're hard work. And they came back every year to get their photo taken, okay? And of course, parents get roped in too. So that was just, so again, for a family that doesn't come to church, they end up with a photo of themselves. And so these folk came to our Live at 5 Message Church thing, never came to worship. They get a photo of themselves acting out the Christmas story. It's at home. It's in the album or on the mantelpiece. It's a reminder of what this story is about. Oh, who's that person? What are they doing? But the other thing was, it was really important to me that we have contemplative spaces. So the other thing that we did with this room, hang on. Where's that gone? The other thing we did with this room was, I want some places that are dark. I want some places that are not well lit, because that creates atmosphere. So we also use the creche as a dark room. So in this year, what's happened at the end is there are a whole lot of cardboard boxes and shoe boxes all taped together with gaffer tape, and in them are Christmas decorations and pictures of Christmas from around the world, so from different cultures, and on 3 of the screens there are video loops playing. And I can talk to you more about the technology of that, but basically it's actually one PowerPoint screen with 3 tiny videos on it that are positioned through the data projector to just go to that little box which has got translucent paper, and they're looping. Okay, so and this one is of a embryo in a womb. This is sparklers, and this is an eye that kind of blinks and changes. So that was when it's dark, people have to peer in. On the left here, we've got nativities. I'll come back to them. On the right, we've got a. I'll talk about the iPhone. I'll put this over here. That box on the right, that's an iPhone theatre. So it's a. You probably can't see me, but it's a box that had software manuals in it, and I've cut a hole in it, and I put my iPhone in it, and I have a movie playing on a loop with headphones, and people come and watch the movie. But we also had further up, you can't see them, whole bunch of shoe boxes painted in black. Inside them we put a colour picture of something of the Christmas story from around the world, so painted by an artist from another culture. We got $2 little kind of, you know, the book lights you put on your book so you can read. We got $2 little book lights in there. So it's basically like a little pinhole box. So you pick up the black box, you look in the pinhole, and you'd see a picture of the Christmas story from somewhere around the world was part of that room. Whoops, going the wrong way. And another time, so this was in the room, so I want to show you that too, but it's next to me. So in there's a, I'm going to jump back out and jump back into this. I'll do that to show you these things. Are you coping? Look, I haven't even started yet. So this is the iPhone Theatre, okay? It had manuals for the Apple Final Cut Pro Studio. I've got a couple of them, and I cut a hole that fits my iPhone, and I gaffer tape it in there, and I have a movie that's on loop, and I actually make sure it's going to loop for as long as the whole thing goes, and I run headphones underneath and people listen to it, use it all the time. The thing about it is, you actually have to lean in to watch it, and I stole that idea from, some of you'll know Mike Emmett, I stole it from him. That light box you saw, so that's actually Perspex. I actually stole that from Cheryl Laurie, but that's a whole other story too. She made it. It's Perspex with beeswax on it, and what's inside it is 2 things. I started collecting trees. So we were away for Easter. We were at Panola, in South Australia, and I went in, and there was a jewellery shop, and they had this in the window, and I said, I just want this because there are lots of trees in the Bible. So I've actually got 2 silver trees. They used it to hang jewellery off. And so that was inside the box. And the college in Adelaide that I worked at, they had, as you walked into the foyer of the college, there was the word peace in silver. So I stole both of those. I borrowed, well, that's mine, I didn't steal it. Where's the thing gone? Why have we lost Keynote? Oh, because it's not in full, okay. So we'll jump back in. We'll jump back in. We'll jump back in. So this is the light box that I just mentioned. So inside it, there's a fluoro thing, and there's this silver tree, and there's the this silver word peace, and next to it is this. It says the Jesse tree, and it's got Isaiah 11, and it talks about this Messiah coming from the tree of David, from the seed of David. And then it says at the bottom, it talks about the Jesse tree and says, and about the Prince of Peace. If you can see that. And at the bottom it says, take one of the wooden sticks, which were like skewers, and write your hopes for peace on the outside of the box. So people, as you saw there, were writing peace prayers on the outside of that. So it's got beeswax, so you can actually carve into the beeswax. So this is for the end if we get there. The time's going away. We'll see how we go. I'll show you this at the end if I can. This is another way we use the craze. So the last year we did a music room, and we had a whole bunch of stuff happening there. But this is the fruit salad keyboard. And what was on the keyboard, so you basically, there are a bunch of bits of fruit, and I've got this next to me right at the moment. Is it going to work? Is it going to work? I'll show you in a minute. I have this set up next to me at the moment. If we get there, if it works at the end, we'll do it. So it's a keyboard made of fruit. You play a note, you play a piece of fruit and you hear a note. What I had on the wall, and there's a number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so you don't have to be a musician. What I had on the wall was the Christmas carol Silent Night, Holy Night. Why have we done that? Well, it's fun to press a lemon and hear a note. But secondly, for people who don't go to church, don't know Christmas carols, don't even know what the words are, what's on the wall is one of the best known Christmas carols, one of the ones they're most likely to hear, and it's got the lyrics. And so you actually see the words and play along with that Christmas carol, and maybe that's the only time you hear it in your life, or maybe sometime when you hear it again you go, oh yeah, that was that Silent Night song. Dad, what does Round Yon Virgin mean? You know, like there's a possibility of a conversation around this thing. Look, I've had more. I'm going to pause for a second. And have some conversation about what you've seen so far.
Well, a lot of the things you've said, Craig, are ideas that we can have if we're doing an interactive church service, worship service. But I think most of us believe we're going to be doing Christmas by Zoom this year. We're just wondering what other idea. I mean, I like the idea of a take-home bag that we could distribute to members of the church and their family members, and some of the other ideas of an Advent page on our website and putting some YouTube videos and things like that. If you can put some of those up as resources. You know, we normally have a musical and things like that, which obviously isn't going to take place. So what other ideas do people have for virtual Christmas?
So thank you, Alison. So I've got quite a few more ideas to come. I think what I'm trying to encourage you to do is to think beyond think beyond doing Advent and Christmas through Zoom worship. So what we do there is fine. How does it connect with what people do at home? Because what we've got in the season is we've got 4 weeks of that season and then Christmas. So you can actually invite people to do something every day so that when they come on Sunday, they've read part of the story, they've sat with a symbol, they've said a prayer over dinner, they've received something in their letterbox, and the story begins to mean more. The next bit is talking about contemplative spaces. So part of what I would do at church is to say, gathering at church is a really difficult time. It's really difficult for us. So depending on what the restrictions are in November, December, I'm going to create at least 1, but maybe 4 rooms or spaces in the church where people can come and contemplate the story. And depending on the restrictions, they might be there in 1s or 2s or 5s, and that's fine. And I'll find some people who can be there to manage the traffic, etc. But it's not going to be a big gathered Christmas, so how can we make it a differently gathered Christmas? So some of the stuff that we will put online will be stuff that you could show as videos. You know, I just showed you can make a stop motion video. We've got some links to songs and videos that you can show, but I guess I want to try and so let me take that. So some stuff I'm going to show you that'll help with this. But even what I've shown you so far, so Christmas around the world, if you were to say to your congregation, who's lived in another part of the world? Who's celebrated Christmas in another part of the world? Who's got a symbol or a story or a photo of Christmas that you experienced somewhere else? Could you share that with us? And people have stories. So how you get them is up to you. They could make a video, they could send you a photo, they could ring into your worship service. What we want to do is add meaning to the story. So for me, it's not about taking a world tour. It's about the fact that the celebrations and rituals of other cultures teach us something about the story. So, yeah, look, I can give you some other ideas from what we've done, but I guess like another one. So I had origami cranes. You remember the tale of origami cranes? So when I was doing supply ministry a couple of years ago for Pentecost, I got the Blackwood United Church. We made 1,000 paper cranes and we hung them in the church. Okay, 1,000 paper cranes. Now it's nuts. But at Rosefield, and this was one of our retired ministers who was leading worship, his idea was to make a tree out of paper cranes. So Margie, who was at that table, she was getting everybody to make origami cranes. And on Christmas Day, they had it was a metal base, a metal pole with ropes, and it was full of paper cranes. So people can sit at home and make paper cranes and pray for peace while they're doing it, and you can get them and you can make a tree, and they'll go, wow, I made some of those. So you see I'm trying to make some connections between home stuff and what people see on the screen. So what they see on the screen is not just presentation, it's actually more participatory, I guess. And so to use a symbol, the symbol becomes something that they see on screen, that they talk about in your Zoom worship, that they put on the table, that they hang in the window, they hang a star on their letterbox, that you're actually connecting different settings is part of what does that help? I'm trying to take it beyond the Sunday Zoom and connect it to other locations and settings and times.
Yep.
And Chris has also sent a message. Chris Barnett's here. He's spectacular at thinking about interactive, intergenerational worship. And Chris would love to help you do this, with this stuff too. So it's not just us in the Presbytery. Chris has got more ideas and resources than you can. So I'm going to go for a few more minutes. And if you want to hang around, that's fine. What I want to do next is to show you the contemplative space that we set up. And as I said, for me, if I was running Advent Christmas worship at the moment, church, I would be thinking about how to create some contemplative spaces, probably in the church building. Again, like we're not sure what's going to happen, that people might come and visit in small numbers as part of their Advent journey, but also to give people some stuff, and it's probably in the take-home bag, where they can set up a little space at home. So what if you said for the 4 weeks of Advent, we're going to give people a take-home bag each week, and in that bag will be a prayer space that they can set up for that week. So it's a part of the story. And we give them some stuff, but we also invite them to make some stuff. And if they've got that there, you can send them things during the week that add to that. Might be a written reflection, might be a link to a song, might be something they can make, might be hold this thing that you've got, hold this star and say this prayer. Or as you make the origami crane, this week we're going to pray for the people of the Middle East. This week we're going to pray for reconciliation with Aboriginal people, justice for them. So you can actually build on that over the time you've got. So I'm going to just show you a bit more. So rooms 1 and 2 were a contemplative space. On this occasion it was about, this room was actually about telling a story of when the angels came to the shepherds. But most of the time it was a space for contemplation. This was a piece by Roddy Hamilton from Scotland. He's been to Melbourne at least once. And what we wanted to do was to create some prayer stations that might work across generations. So people were allowed into this room in limited numbers, in pairs. So it had to be 2 people from different generations. So you couldn't have 2 kids come in or 2 adults come in. It had to be 2 people from different generations. And we would put a limit on the number of people in the room. So if there were 5 prayer stations, for example, or contemplative stations, then no more than 10 people, 2 per station, and the person on the door would count them coming out and say the next 2, then you can go in. And so in there we would have a bunch of stations that might be used by individuals or a couple of people. So if there were headphones, there'd always be 2. This is about the Annunciation. It's that light box you saw before. It's got a tiny little, you know those little artist shops have these little wooden figures that are about a foot high that you can position for making sketches. Well, that's actually Mary's head there. We've got a tiny projector and a kind of a swirly thing and some Magnificat songs playing and a reflection piece. And there's an invitation there. And again, it was a different year. It was the thing too. There was a reflection on Mary and the Annunciation. And again, we used to think of writing something with the skewer on the light box. This is about Mary and Joseph going on a journey. There's sandals, there's dirt and rocks. There was a video clip.
When your day is long and the night is yours alone. When you're sure you've had enough of this life, hang on. Don't let yourself go.
So there were stations that would take people through the story, and this one invited people to think about the journey being long and to take a stone and hold it with them and to think about the load that they bear. We did a bunch of stuff around refugees. That's stories of refugees from around the world. It's a photo essay of children trying to sleep who are in refugee camps and who are basically refugees without a home, and with a short story which were just horrible, and they were a reflection of, so we did the thing about people who are homeless, Jesus being a refugee, a part of his life, people who are on the road, all that kind of stuff. That was the refugee thing. that was about, I think, about peace. So we had magnetic poetry, so people can make peace prayers and think about peace. And we had some hands-on stuff too around making cards, making collages with colours and things like that. So this was the Christmas card that people could colour in and write a message in. We're trying to create contemplative spaces and moments around the story, and I'll tell you about this one in a second. So what I'm suggesting to you is that this doesn't require you to gather for worship. You can send prayer stations home to people. You can actually put them online. You can actually make one of these a web page, and you could set some up in your church building and say, we're open from 6 till 8. We can only have 5 at a time, whatever's allowed at the time. Please come and share the Advent journey with us. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll have some different stations, so please come back. So this was, I mentioned this on Tuesday night. This was another year with that same loop that you just saw me and Joseph, and it had, so I'd bought some cane stars, I'd painted them blue, and the reflection was about a blue Christmas, and taking it home and hanging it on your Christmas tree and remembering that some people do a tougher Christmas. And as I said a bit more about this the other night, but when you hang it, for families to take a blue star home and hang it on your tree, that's a very noticeable thing on a Christmas tree because there's nothing blue on a Christmas tree. So it's actually got a story to tell, and it's a memory each time you put it back. So in that room, we had lots of art. And the other thing is, and here's probably my last take-home idea before we take a break. We invited people from the church to lend us nativities, and we put them around the room. And it was really important to me that the room was not well lit, because if you want to create, I had the word enchantment before. If you want to create a sense of enchantment, you don't have bright lights; you have candles. And so people lent us these nativities, and some of them were incredibly precious, and we had them throughout the room, and people could come and see them. And I'm not sure why they're not on this particular year, but there were little signs that said where they came from. So what are we doing here? Well, if you don't know the Christmas story, if you don't have a church background, then you actually look at them and you go, what's going on here? And if you do, they're still a wonderful thing because they remind you of the story. They're from different parts of the world. And, you know, the one that we have from Thailand has got an elephant in it, elephant and chickens, and a water buffalo. So it actually talks about this story being global as well. So part of the idea here was, actually I'll go to this next. I know what I'm going to finish with now. So this was Christmas decorations. So because so many Christmas decorations are Santa and stuff like that, we collected Christmas decorations that were symbols of Christmas. Oh, there's our Thai nativity at the bottom that we got in the First About Face project in Thailand in 1984. And the box on the left, you'll see I've got two of the ones next to me. I'm not going to show it to you now. I bought this cheap box, and it keeps out Christmas presents, and it's like that's literally how we store them. Okay, and the one next to me has actually got more holes in it than that. So we've put in there a whole bunch of Christmas symbols, and what I'm thinking of doing this year is to actually use one of these two boxes as an online advent calendar. So here's a box with a lot of holes, and if you log on each day, there's going to be a new thing in there, and you'll see it. There'll be a close-up, and we'll tell you what it is and where it's from. So another way to walk people through Advent is through an online Advent calendar, or one that they take or make at home. I'm going to finish with this little bit here. So you can do Advent calendars for all ages. You can make them lots of different ways. When our kids were small, we didn't want to buy them Advent calendars because Advent calendars are full of stuff that's just tacky. So for years, we made 2 and then 3 Advent calendars at home. So we get a big bit of white card, we get a big bit of shiny card, we'd cut 25 holes windows in 2 and then 3 things, and then we would find little interesting, meaningful, quirky pictures of the Christmas story and stick them in every single hole and seal them up, and our kids would do an at-home advent calendar that was about the Christmas story, not the Santa story. So you can actually, and one of the pictures I had to share with you was actually of a way of doing that. You can do it with paper bags. There's more than one way that people could make an advent calendar at home. So you can actually have that as it could be an adult project, it could be an all-age project, it could be whatever, of helping people. So you could send them stuff, or they could find their own stuff. They could find pictures online and do their own advent calendar. The idea here is, how do we step people through the season? You know, you've got these 25 days. For people who don't actually step through the season with the story, you've got 25 opportunities to do that. You can mail it, you can put it online, you can email it, you can drop it in the letterbox. Here's 25 snippets that lead us up to, you can tell a story, you can have a prayer, you can add a symbol, you can have a photo. Chris will know this. There's a Advent a day, Lent a day Instagram photo thing where there's a tag and you take a photo on your phone every day and you post it there, and people can see the photo of the day from Advent. And it can be your church or people anywhere, any church in the world. So that's another way to, you can actually photograph your way through to Christmas. I'm going to stop there. I had more stuff, folks. Believe it or not, because we haven't got through the whole of the space yet, and because I'm not going to do it, I'm going to show you.
Yes,
So
that
that's
works.
the
That works.
that's the fruit keyboard, folks. And I was going to play Joy to the World here tonight. I can tell you that a pomegranate is not good. It doesn't conduct well, but these things are pretty good. Okay. So I'm going to do another bit, not tonight, to finish this off. And on this side, that's our other bigger decoration box that I want to do the Advent a day. Here's so you get this empty box, and every day something new appears in there, and put it online. But that's where we store our Christmas decorations. Okay, so that's look, if I did that, it would take me 5 minutes to set it up, so I'm not going to do it tonight. I'll make a video and show you, okay? That's using a thing called a Makey, and it's plugged into my computer, and these all conduct electricity into the keyboard, and I can then play Silent Night with numbers. The apple is over there. The apple and the pineapple, they didn't work very well. Just telling you, don't try it with an apple and a pineapple. But that's what we did. That was on the wall. So the last room, which was the youth room, because the youth room is always at the back of the church, right? That's the last room. So at Easter, it was the tomb, and at Christmas, it was the stable. And this had to be the most, this is the culmination of the story, and it had to be the most special part. So we had a guy who did, his job was to do lighting for shows. So he would bring scaffolding, and I bought meters of black cloth, which I've got, and a shed full of fairy lights, and a big star. I've got that big star actually sitting next to me at the moment to show you. And the idea was that people here would hear the culmination of the story. So they'd come in a small group, and what you see on the left is Margie telling something of the story. So we've got a manger there, and another year on the right, we've got Lee Newton singing some songs. But for 3 of the other 5 years, the same family gave us a baby, like a new baby, for 3 of the 5 years. They eventually moved to Queensland. I said, that's so you don't have another baby. And then they had another baby. That's another story. So for, hang on. So I'll show you the baby in a minute. And so Margie's, one of the things that Margie read was, and so the background music, because we wanted to create this sense of magic and wonder. If you sit very still and watch closely and listen carefully, you might see and hear something wonderful, something unpredictable, something miraculous. You might see a family who've travelled long, alone and anxious, seeking shelter, safety, a warm welcome, a comfortable bed, etc. Okay, so it evokes imagination. And this is Lucy and Mark and baby Jesus number 3. And you know as well as I do, when people walked in, there's an actual baby there. It was just wonderful, very, very special, but intimate. So it wasn't like doing a nativity up the front of the church, okay, or in a, you've seen live nativities outdoors. This was 6 or 8 people gathered into this tiny room, quiet, still, reflective, and very special. And so what we did at the end was, this is what I'll finish with too, is we gave people something to take away. So one of our church people was an artist, and so she designed, these are 2 things she designed 2 different years, which were laser cut. They cost us a couple of bucks each, and every family got one to take home and hang on their tree. So I said this the other night, what are we giving them? We're giving them something unique. We're giving them something from Roseville Uniting Church. We're giving them something that represents the Christmas story that might not be anywhere in their Christmas tree, and we're giving them something that reminds them both of us and of the story. And it's our gift to you, and we give you that, and we give you a meal table blessing to take home. So they've got a little laminated prayer that says, "May stars shine upon us with the light of God's way. May angels surprise us with the song of God's peace. May the humble seek us with the news of God's hope. May wise ones visit us with the gift of God's joy. May the Christ child embrace us with the warmth of God's love." Now, we don't know if they use it, but it's an invitation, and it might be the only prayer that's said in that house, or even if it's not, it's a prayer that they can say together around a table and remember what's been special about this story. So every time there's something to take home, along with the bag of stuff that they've collected along the way, the candle for Grandma, all the other bits and pieces that have been part of, maybe the blue Christmas star, that have been part of that journey with them. So we wanted to finish with something that was like a focus. You don't just walk out the door. We actually say, "Hold it, folks. This is a special time." And believe me, that last room, that's our liminal space. We've prepared you for that because we've actually had times along the way when you've had to quieten down. So it's not just chaos and then we try to quieten you down for 5 minutes. No. And you can only go in here in small groups. And people just stand and wait outside wondering what the heck's inside the room. There you go. Someone asked about cranes. Look, cranes can be hard to make, and because I've got people to make 1,000. And yes, there are simpler ways you can do it. So you can do something different. You can get people to cut something out, whatever it is. It was really the idea was really that people can make stuff at home, and you can put it together as something in church, and people feel like they're a part of something bigger. Yep. So there you go, folks. That's 60, 70% of what I had to share tonight. And I just wanted to put out a zillion ideas and to say that there are ways that this stuff can be done in different settings. So my prayer is actually that we don't, and it's whether we're gathered or not, we don't actually limit Advent and Christmas to that hour of worship on a Sunday. We actually make it part of people's life and spiritual journey for that whole season. And kind of drip feed's the wrong word, but we just gently encourage people on the story by giving them bits of it along the way.